Welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Abbie Richie. I'm the CEO and founder of Senior Savvy. You can find me here every Tuesday talking with people who are engaged in the age tech innovation space. Before we bring our guests on, I first want to thank ProCare HR for sponsoring our show. Let's face it, HR tasks can be a pain, and that's why ProCare HR is committed to helping you work out those kinks so that you can focus on what really matters, delivering care. And with that, let's go ahead and run our show intro. Welcome back to Tech Tuesday. I want to go ahead now and introduce my guests and bring them on. We have Mary Furlong, and Mary's been a returning guest. Welcome back to Tech Tuesday, Mary.
Great to be here.
And I also have Moshe Bellows, and welcome to Tech Tuesday, Moshe.
Thank you for having me, Abbie.
You are welcome. And then I also have Tahiri. Welcome to Tech Tuesday, Tahiri. Did I say your name right?
It's Tahira.
Tahira. Okay, I apologize for that. I want to welcome you back, welcome you to Tech Tuesday. Before we launch in and we talk about what everyone's involved in, I want to give Mary just a couple of minutes. She's coming off the heels of the summit and she has to get going. So Mary, tell us in just a few words, how was the summit and what unique and interesting aspects of it would you like to share with us?
Oh, so I'll hold up the program here. We were just at the Washington Longevity Innovation Summit, where we had over 200 people there and the stakeholders in the longevity market. So we had an investor panel where they talked about, by the year 2030, all baby boomers will be 65 and older, and people over 65 in the U.S. are anticipated to be a $74.1 million member market, but 12.6 trillion in economic opportunity. So there's a lot of riches in the niches. This conference focused on investment in innovation and caregiving, which I think is the largest opportunity within the longevity market. And we had government leaders like the head of aging in the state of New York, Greg Olson. We had Lance Robertson, who used to be at HHS and is now at Guidehouse. So we had state leaders, entrepreneurs, and investors. And what's important is that some of the fastest ways companies are going to market are through state governments. So in New York, they've done 14 deals with entrepreneurial companies in the last year. And then there are new investors coming into the market: seed, angels, social impact, and even government and foundation investors. So we had a lot of those represented, and also global investment. So we had investors like Raisa Cohen, who came from Israel. So I would just say there's a lot of momentum in the market. It was very exciting to see the traction, and also there are new ways of going to market. They're going to market through home care, through senior housing, which of course you know a lot about, Abbie, and then direct to consumer, and more through government in partners.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Fascinating. And when is your next summit?
Well, we're doing a little event at JP Morgan Healthcare. We'll also be at CES. The Longevity Venture Summit is in June, and that's in its 21st year. So we're very excited to be partnering with the Age Tech Collaborative at ARP on that event. And so that's where we're focused next after the holidays. So.
Excellent. Well, I'll be able to see you in person at CES. Thank you.
Okay, that sounds good. Great. You can be on our podcast, Abbie. We have a podcast.
Yes, exactly. Yep, I'll be doing that. I'm really looking forward to it, and we'll make sure to connect then. And I know you have to get going. I want to thank you for dropping in and just sharing where you're at, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay. Yeah, you're welcome. And let's go ahead and just hop right into it. So, a couple questions I want to ask you both. What is your investment focus? And also, let me say one of the reasons why this show is so important to age tech is that there are many age tech innovators out there, and a lot of times they miss the boat, right? Like they have a great idea, but maybe the way they pitch it, maybe the way they present it, maybe the way that people they're connecting with in order to get funding for it gets misplaced for one reason or another. So I love to speak to the entrepreneur, to the tech innovator who is wanting to get their message out there and to grow and scale. And so the more coaching they receive, the better everyone's going to be in the ecosystem. So that's why this is so important. The second thing is, I wanted to ask you each, what is your investment focus? And so let's start with Moshe. Moshe, what is your investment focus?
Sure. So I'm the managing partner of Maccabee Ventures. We're an early stage pre-seed and seed fund focused on silver tech. That's what we call it, longevity and aging, prop tech, fintech. I am third generation senior living. My family's done everything in that space. So that's what I come out of. I also have a legal background. And I also teach venture. I've been teaching for 6 years at Yeshiva University, SciSim School of Business. Shout out to all my students and co-faculty. We developed a really interesting year-long venture program, where we're training the venture capitalists of tomorrow with moral clarity.
Good.
So that's what we focus on.
Excellent. More clarity is always helpful. And let's see now, Tahira, how about you? What is your focus?
Thank you so much, Abbie. So I am the managing partner of a fund called Resilience VC, and we focus on fintech startups that build financial resilience for Americans. And as we think about financial resilience, we think about it in a few ways. One, ensuring that people have enough net income. So that's helping them generate more earnings or reduce expenses. Second is helping people mitigate risk or helping them better recover from risk and shock. There's so many adverse events in people's lives, and we want to make sure that those aren't detrimental. And then finally, the third component of financial resilience that we focus on is building assets and wealth for the future. And, when we think about older Americans, building financial resilience isn't something that can start in old age. It has to start earlier in someone's life. If we want Americans to be financially resilient, if we want them to be able to navigate their later years, their retirement, with a kind of lifestyle that they have been accustomed to, we have to start early on in building financial resilience. So we invest in fintech companies that are building directly for older Americans, as well as ones that are building financial resilience for folks who are younger, so that they can be more financially stable as they age.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Moshe, you've coined a term called silver tech. You've trademarked that. How did you come across that, and how does it apply to the market potential you're seeing today?
Sure. So first of all, I had gray hair by the time I was 15, 16 years old. So it's not a pejorative term whatsoever. It's a term of endearment, just to get that out of the way. But to Tahira's point, I think a lot of people look at the senior space or aging and longevity, and they think it's only about seniors. It's only about when they're 65, 75, 85. And so what I loved about what Tahira and Resilience is doing is the fact that they're looking at it from a lot younger. So I'll just frame that as well. And I think that we have a lot of go-go seniors these days, right? It's not only thinking about folks that are, on their way to an assisted living, independent living nursing home. There's 30 years now of seniors who are traveling, who are doing all kinds of active things. And I think the mindset of the venture world, of the founder world, has also shifted with that. Not to say that we don't have to focus on those other technologies as well, but there's a whole 30-year period now with folks living longer that are real opportunities for founders and for venture capitalists.
I agree 100%. And let's talk about some of the untapped technology that you would like to see more being developed in either of your fields.
I'm happy to start, and then Moshe, please add on. So our focus as a fintech investor is specifically on embedded fintech. And the reason for that is that most people are not looking for financial services for financial services' sake, right? I don't want credit for the sake of having credit. I want a student loan to go to college. I want a mortgage to buy a house. I want insurance to access healthcare. And so the more we can integrate those financial enablers with the core products and services that they enable, the better user experience you have for the customer, and the better it is for the provider, because they have a captive customer base that they can target. And we think that opportunity is particularly relevant when it comes to serving older Americans. Their needs around healthcare, around housing, around every element of their lives, if we can think about how we can integrate the ways that they pay for it, the ways they borrow for it, the ways they protect their risk against it into those core products, we'll be able to create better user experiences. And so that's the theme that our fund focuses on, and we think is going to be a huge growth area when it comes to fintech for this segment.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm reminded of some of my clients, and the people I work with are usually in their 80s and 90s, and there's a lot of resistance to using technology, or even using like a digital wallet, for instance, to make payments. There's a lot of resistance to just having a debit card, and so I think part of this has to do with education, with integration, and with teaching people how to use these new innovations. Have you found that as well, Moshe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think both on the individual consumer level and as well as on the enterprise level. I tell founders all the time, you're going to have a very difficult time even going into enterprise and selling a new shiny toy that is a point solution as opposed to a holistic solution. And so I think what founders really need to think about is, how am I integrating into what's already there? How am I thinking differently? Because you're right, no one wants a new pane of glass. No one wants another platform that they have to check. Yeah. It's too clunky. It's too difficult. There are too many hoops you have to jump through to earn that consumer.
And trust is really critical, right? It's not just about getting used to or comfortable with the new technology, but it's building that trust. And that's why if you can integrate with existing services providers where customers are already engaging, then we get more value.
I will say that one area that we've been very fortunate, and we've rinsed and repeat many times, is there are so many manual processes in healthcare, even today. The latest, without mentioning any companies, regulatory. Regulatory for nursing homes is so incredibly manually intensive. And so, there are companies out there that are using AI to automate those processes. Again, if we step back, why is that so important? We know that we have a national labor shortage. We know that labor costs have gone up. We know that interest rates have gone up. And so what we do is we look at those things and say, okay, where's the opportunity? And we did that, 2008, 2009, did that during COVID, and it's been very beneficial for us.
Excellent. Thank you. I want to know when these companies are presenting to you for funding, or they're applying to you, what mistakes do you see them making?
Every and all. I'm sure we've seen it all. So I teach venture, so I have the advantage of teaching and bringing in these folks. Look, first, team is number one, right? So have an incredible team. If you have some missing folks, either film them or fill those positions or acknowledge them. I think that's really important. I think that's one reason why, again, not to get political, but Israeli startups are so successful is because you generally have two founders. One is, and we invest in North America and Israel, but one founder is generally a subject matter expert. The other is generally a technology expert. And so you don't have to think about the technology because it's already taken care of. And so that's a really positive thing. And I think just be honest, like as VCs, we see 3,000 companies a year, and we can, saying that there's no competition, there either is competition, or you don't know about the competition, or there's perceived psychological competition. So those kinds of things, and be credible, because once you overstate or misstate, credibility is everything. We're building a 7 to 10 year relationship, which we call a marriage. And so integrity is everything.
Yeah, I would certainly echo that element of trust and integrity, right? Moshe, you called it a marriage, but right now the average founder-funder relationship lasts longer than the average marriage in the U.S. And so it really is. It is a deep relationship. Moshe, we'll also have to compare notes on teaching, because I teach venture capital and impact investing classes here at Georgetown and at Johns Hopkins. So we'll have to connect on that. But in addition to that trust, and that trust comes from honesty, certainly, but it also comes from demonstrating that you have a deep knowledge of your customer. And that's something that we think is so critical. Know your customer, understand them. Either you've come from that lived experience, or you have put in the time and effort to deeply understand the needs of that customer. And then remember that needs don't equate with wants, and needs and wants certainly don't necessarily align with a willingness to pay. And so, really understanding each of those elements becomes critical. And then the other big thing, especially with early stage founders, that we think is so critical is focus. It is so easy and so tempting to be drawn in and pulled in many directions. And really maintaining a core focus on your critical service that you are offering in a differentiated way, and just keeping a very clear line of sight on that is so critical, because you can get pulled in so many directions as an early stage founder.
I agree with all those. Tahira, if I could just amplify one of the things you mentioned, and that is know your clients. Very often, too often, frankly, you ask a founder, how many client calls have they made? During, even in a first meeting, we'll ask that question. And a lot of times you'll get back either not many or none at all. And for us as venture capitalists, during due diligence, we're going to probably introduce you to potential clients, or we're going to vet you through our network, which has potential clients. And so we're going to know pretty quickly. And so it's if you get to that point without making client calls, your odds of getting to that point without having made those client calls are super slim.
Certainly. And we actually had invested in a company, and they had a practice that I absolutely love, which is that everyone in the organization, from the CEO down, had to do a shift in the call center once a month. Right. And so everyone, whether it was a developer, the COO, the CFO, et cetera, were all directly hearing and interfacing with customers and hearing their challenges. And so, I think there's practices like that ensure not just one time did you do, some focus groups at the beginning, but are you constantly in touch with your customer? Do you understand how they're using and engaging with your product?
And there's data that, that shows that, scholarly data that clearly shows that, A, and B, most companies pivot. Like, founders don't really talk about this. The vast majority of companies pivot. So the closer you are to your customer and understanding what their challenges are, the better off you're going to be when you need to pivot. And they're going to be far closer to you, and you're going to know it earlier, and they're going to join you on that journey. They won't dump you and churn. They'll join you on that journey because it's a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple of things that you all said, and several people had comments I wanted to get right back to. And just in terms of really getting to know your customer. And quite frequently when I'm consulting with a startup, one thing that I've noticed is that they really haven't spent enough time with older adults to know, first of all, that nothing is easy. Nothing is super simple, super easy when you're working with an older adult and or a caregiver. And so I see that happening all the time. The other thing is that they will often use outdated terminology or terminology that's not appropriate, considering all of the assisted living homes might be termed as institutions or nursing homes, or talking about elderly when you're really speaking about older adults. So, those things are fine-tuned and a way to approach this particular demographic. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would echo. So first of all, like, we either want someone that has lived and breathed this problem and is marinating in it, or perhaps an outsider that has observed this but has studied it so incredibly well that knows it almost better than the jaded, biased insider, perhaps. And so, both of those, could easily work. In terms of the language that's used, look, those are tells for Tahira and I to, understand, do they really understand this business? Have they vested time and energy? With a cautionary piece that's pretty easy to fix. Like if they have, some sort of, language that they keep reverting to, we can educate them on that. So, we have to have an ear towards that, but that can be fixed unless it's a deep-rooted sort of feeling about the industry. If they think senior living, our institution, we're institutionalizing or warehousing seniors, that's probably not the person that you want leading your company.
Now, Philip, thank you. Philip posted a question. I'm really not sure about those changes. Does anyone have a comment to that, to answer that question? Nope. We'll get back to you then, Philip, okay? And I'll take a look at that in just a bit. Now, I want to ask you, as an owner-operator, Moshe, and our third generation, that's very impressive. What are the owner-operators looking for today in technology?
Yeah, so like I started with, my folks get pitched everything and anything. And so, first of all, it has to be spectacular to begin with. Again, it cannot be another point solution. Think about it. You're a nurse, you're rounding, you're a CNA. You don't have enough time in your day to begin with. Government wants us all to do more, do more with less reimbursements and everything like that. So it really has to speak to, the ROI. You almost can't get into a community these days without a clear ROI. So I would say to founders, do a POC, do some early client development to get real ROIs, develop a white paper so that ROI is abundantly clear. And then if the ROI is clear, ultimately understand who you're selling to. There's the owner, there's the executive director, there's the nurse or the CNA, and ultimately you're going to sell to everyone, but know who your decision maker is. So really understand the industry so you know who you have to appeal to.
Great answer. And let's see, where else do I want to head with this? I also wanted to ask you, how can people sell into the ecosystem? And
yeah, I'm happy to start with my perspective. So, selling, anytime you're selling into the ecosystem, whether you're selling kind of direct to consumer or B2B, B2B2C, you really have to be able to solve a clear pain point that exists, and not just solve it by being incrementally better, but by being significantly better. Moshe talked about the realities of people that are dealing with a high workload. Integrating a new product is difficult. There are also very real switching costs. Even if your product is a little bit better than an existing solution that's already been integrated, that people have already been trained on, that they've already gotten comfortable with, even if it's not as good, is hard to displace. And so you have to be meaningfully better than existing solutions to be able to break into that ecosystem.
Agree. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'll give you a practical example, right? So it used to be that people used to come to us, and they still do, with wearables, right? And in certain instances that might work, but in a senior living setting, when you've got 100 residents and the battery life is either a day or 3 days, imagine the tax that you're putting, right, and things disappear or get borrowed, or confused with others. And so imagine the tax that you're putting on the community. You're not getting past go. You're not getting, collecting $200. Now there are companies, like Vyar, which it's a sensor on the wall. You put it on the wall. It tracks where everybody is. It can track heart rate, breath rate, just everything. Now imagine that. Imagine telling a nurse or a CNA or an owner, you know what? I'm going to take the onus off of you. So instead of rounding and actually going in every room, which you have to do anyway, you're going to have 24-hour persistent without a camera, with LiDAR and blah, blah, blah. So I'm sharing with people, I understand your burden. I understand your struggle. And I am here to help you to offload that. And the data is going to be even better, because you're not going to be able to tell how often someone goes to the bathroom to see if they have a UTI or something else, some comorbidity or whatever, but we can. And with AI, we can. So now I'm giving you more information in a bite-sized morsel, taking it off your folks' plate, limiting that liability.
Yeah.
That's a great narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then when it comes to selling directly to consumers, as we talked about earlier, you have to deeply understand their needs as well. But this is a segment where reaching them individually is not easy. And that's where we see the power of embedded, of going through, the channels, the value chains that they're already engaging with, the products that they're already using. That becomes much more powerful. And when we think about serving older Americans as a segment and helping them or their caregivers more effectively help them be resilient through their old age, there has to be so much thought to product design. There has to be so much thought to creating something before you can sell it into that ecosystem, because you often only get one shot with these customers. And if your product isn't designed in a way that's easy to use, that's intuitive, you're not going to get the traction that you want.
And it does.
I was just going to say, something I really like about the Age Tech Collaborative is that they encourage test beds, so that companies can work out the prototype, work out the kinks before they go to market. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agree.
Well, you guys have been a wealth of information for our viewers and for me, and I have learned so much. I want to thank you for that. And I would love for you to let our viewers know how they can connect with you when they have more questions. So Moshe, if you can go first, please.
Sure. Our website for our fund is maccabee.vc, and there's a sign-up sheet there. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Moshe Bellows.
Great. And will we see you at CES as well?
I am supposed to attend.
We'll see. We will see. Right. I feel like that too sometimes. So I appreciate that. And Tahira, how about you? How can people connect with you?
Our website is resilience.vc, and you can also find me on LinkedIn at the link below.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And for those folks in the chat today, thank you for your comments. Thank you for participating. You're awesome. You know how much I appreciate you. And speaking of which, next week is my 100th episode doing Tech Tuesday, and I couldn't be more thrilled. Yeah, thanks. And so it's been a wonderful 2 years. And next week, my brother, who is a rock star, Todd Hartley, he's going to be interviewing me, and I will be having some of my favorite guests and favorite audience members on to talk about what have been some of the highlights for them over the past 2 years. So I hope you do pop in for that and comment. Would love to see you on there as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you back here next week.